Have you ever wondered if you've lived before? Today, we are diving into the mysterious and fascinating topic of past lives and how exploring them can help you gain insights into the present.
Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are here exploring the mystical side of life once again. If you enjoy our conversations, remember to subscribe, share with a friend. We have Joanne DiMaggio returning on Exploring the Mystical Side of Life today, and we are talking past lives. Joanne is an author and a past life researcher, many years experience unraveling the thought of reincarnation and what happens to the soul between lives. Welcome back, Joanne.
Thanks, Linda. It's great to be here again.
This is such an interesting topic. I, as well, have done many past life regressions. I've trained in hypnosis to be able to guide people back. It's such a fascinating experience, though, when you actually go into another life and you have a sense of who you are. You can see other souls that are with you in this lifetime, even though they're not, the same person. They don't even have to be the same sex. It's just such an incredible experience and can bring you such information about this lifetime. Whatever inspired you to start delving into reincarnation and past lives?
I was born and raised Catholic, and I started questioning the logic of some of the teachings. I went to Catholic school for 12 years, and this idea of sin, the idea if you make a mistake, you go directly to hell, there was something about it. I thought, why would a loving, just God do that to us? So as a teenager, I started reading books about Edgar Cayce that were written by Jess Stern and Ruth Montgomery and all the writers at that time. And I read a book called The Search for Bridey Murphy. And that was my first introduction really to reincarnation. Although as a child, I already had a lot of memory triggers that I had. My interest in 18th century American history. When I go to the library, I get books about Abigail Adams. And I used to write with a feather pen, and I used to listen to Baroque music. I was a very strange child. Anyway, I loved anything about the 18th century, and I majored in American history, 18th century American history in college. And I had a professor say to me, "You have the most uncanny feel for the 18th century of any student I've ever had." And I didn't put two and two together, that it was because I actually lived then. And a lot of the stuff I was writing was actually from memory, not from what I was learning in a book or a lecture hall. So then I got married, kind of went to sleep. And then Shirley MacLaine comes out in 1987 with her miniseries Out on a Limb. It was like my big wake-up call. I think it was the wake-up call for thousands of sleeping metaphysicians. And that same year, I joined Edgar Cayce's ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, which is in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I really just took a dive into researching reincarnation. It took a while before I became an actual past life therapist, but the research was really valuable to me. And the research then became fodder for the books that I have written on that topic. So I'm very passionate about it. And it's a very humbling experience, as you well know, to lead somebody to discover who they were in a prior life and to see how that lifetime is impacting the life they have now and giving them guidance on what to do to free themselves of whatever karmic issues they have so they can move on.
One of the things that I found is that that's typically where a person goes in regression, is to a life that is actually impacting them currently. It's not just an exploration for fun. There's a purpose for you having that information.
Yeah, I consider it sacred work. I always ask Spirit to lead them to the lifetime that's most impacting them now? What good is it? We've had hundreds of lifetimes. We're not working on all of the issues from all of those lives, but something happened in a particular lifetime. It might have been that you did something to someone or they did something to you. It could have been an illness or a trauma. It could have been, on the flip side, it could have been something really positive, like where you first came up with your talents, skills, and abilities. And you decided in this life between life session, before you came into this incarnation, you said, I need to work on this issue of acceptance and approval. And I think that this life I'm designing next would be perfect to work on that. And so I'm going to make that my soul's mission, that I work on that issue. And so now when you go back and you look at it from a past life point of view, that issue could have started 1,000 years ago. So you're not always working on something from the immediate preceding life. Your soul is very patient and will wait for the right incarnation, the right socioeconomic conditions, the right parents. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that most people never give a thought to. But in fact, you plan out the life that you have. And it helps to have sort of a guidebook, right? To know, okay, well, I'm working on this. These are the areas that I need to watch out for. And then put your energy and attention into those so that you can get past them.
I think it's probably important to say that it's not like this conscious person in this lifetime that is making these choices. This is from the soul's perspective, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Everything from the people that are around you to what you may perceive as a weakness or what you may perceive as a strength. This is all something you've earned. It's not random. There's no such thing as anything random in the universe. I've been a writer for many, many lifetimes. I like to think of myself as a reporter for the universe because that's where I'm comfortable. Other people, they'll come in, they'll have a green thumb. They'll naturally know how to compose music or work with their hands or work with numbers or any number of gifts. Other people will be dealing with issues of abandonment. They'll have serious relationship issues, serious financial issues, or they may have a chronic illness that's based on something that happened to them or that they did in a prior lifetime. I'll never forget Mr. Casey gave a reading for someone who was asking why she was dealing with this issues of obesity. And he said, and this is so simple, he said, it's because in your past life you used to make fun of people that were obese. Now, that may be a very simplistic explanation. And you may go, well, that's not, but it is a big deal. So our attitudes, it's not just things that, it's things that we think, things that we do, who we were as people back then that surprisingly may pop up. I had a woman who came to me, she had head to toe psoriasis, and she wanted to know the source of the psoriasis. We went back to a lifetime in which she was a call girl in the Old West. And when I asked her, what were your last thoughts as your soul left your body? She said, I don't want to be touched anymore. And so in this life, she manifests a skin condition, in which nobody wants to touch her. You get those stories over and over and over again with this work. And once they make the connection that what's going on now happened back then, and they're just repeating a behavior pattern, you can release it, you could heal it, you could forgive it, and then you can move on.
So sometimes it's a karmic pattern, and sometimes it's just kind of an attachment, or you've planted the seed there and you've somehow become attached to that without necessarily karmic lessons that go with it. Is that a fair thing to say?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I ask people when I mentioned about that woman with the psoriasis, what are your last thoughts as your soul leaves your body? Because often that'll set up the next lifetime. So I get a lot of people who say things like, I should have loved more. I should have done more. I missed opportunities. I wasn't kind enough. Those then get planted into the next lifetime, and you either repeat that pattern or you end it. Okay, so if you know that in your past life you weren't kind enough, in this life it would behoove you to be very, very kind to people, right? To balance out that karma. So that's valuable information to know in the journey of the soul.
It seems, Joanne, like some people really have bitten off quite a lot in their lifetime. They have, so much adversity, so many challenges.
Hmm.
Does the soul actually plan all of that, or is some of that our own doing because of our choices in this lifetime?
Well, I think free will plays a very important part in everything that we do. You can plan out your life day by day by day, but in any given moment, you can decide, I'm not going down that road. I'm going to do something else. That'll change the whole trajectory of that lifetime. You'd be surprised at how a very simple decision, sometimes not even your own decision, somebody, if you're a child and your parents make a decision, off you go in this different direction. When you go in front of the elders, it's like going in front of guidance counselors at school. Okay. Because think of Earth as a school and you're planning your curriculum. All right. Now, I don't know what grade level you're at, but the elders will look at what you've accomplished over millenniums and they'll say, this is you failed your class in responsibility. Why don't we think about working on that? And you go, yeah, this next lifetime will be perfect for that. I'll plug that in. That becomes your curriculum. So you might have maybe 3 things you're working on, maybe only 1, maybe 4, I don't know. You usually don't have more than a few. And those will present themselves to you. Those issues will present themselves to you through your soul family, the souls that'll come with you into this life. If your issue is abandonment, then your souls coming in are going to say, I love you, and at some point I am going to abandon you because you need to resolve that. You need to feel that because you may have abandoned somebody in a previous life. So to balance it out, you're going to experience what that's like. And the people around you are going to agree to help you with that. And then once that's resolved, then you don't have to deal with it anymore. It goes in your positive karmic bank account, I like to think of it as.
So, what do you think about the thought that once we make the commitment to do something or to learn something, that is on our plate, however many lifetimes it takes? And maybe we started in one lifetime and we set it aside, but eventually we need to fulfill that.
Right. There are certain courses you have to fulfill before you can graduate, right? So we are spiritual beings inhabiting a physical body. The only reason we're on Earth is because there are things that we can experience on the Earth plane that we can't experience anyplace else. Edgar Cayce said, whatever started on the Earth has to be finished on the Earth. So whatever issues come up, the whole idea of karma, you reap what you sow. It's this balance that's going on. So you kind of take a look at areas that you need to work on, things that you did in the past, and then create a life in which you can best address that. And then eventually you'll have dealt with everything that there is to learn on the Earth, and then you won't need to return. So it's not unless you want to, because a lot of souls that are here don't need to be here, but they've chosen to come back to be in service to other souls.
And so how would you know if something you're experiencing in your life has a root in a past life?
Well, if you see that it's repeating itself, if it's a behavior pattern that keeps repeating, that's a good indication that it's rooted in another lifetime. If you have a chronic illness, say, and you've been to every doctor conceivable and none of them can come up with a reason for it or an acceptable diagnosis for you, then maybe it's rooted in a past life. I remember Dr. Norm Shealy, who did a medical intuition conference at the ARE, and he's a medical doctor. And the first thing he said was he believed that all illness was past life related, which for a medical doctor to say was absolutely astonishing to me. And that's why I ended up doing my research in that area. But it's true. Edgar Casey did 14,000 readings. Of those, 12,000 were health readings. And many times in those health readings, he would tell them what was wrong and what they could do about it. And then when he would do the life readings, he would tell them what the origin was in a prior lifetime. So the information has been extremely valuable, and it is very healing. I mean, tremendously healing. Often I have had people who've had a spontaneous healing when we've dealt with the origin of their chronic illness. Just the knowing of where it originated often will heal the situation, whether it's an emotional issue, psychological or mental or whatever. Just knowing the origin releases it. And that's why with past life therapy, people usually only come for one session. It's not like going to a psychotherapist's office and you're lying on the couch and you come week after week after week. This is because with past life therapy, you're going to the root of the cause. You're going directly to where did this start? Why did it start? What did I do to enable it or not enable, whatever? And then what can I do to resolve it? And you can usually get that in one session.
You also did some studying about what happens after life, that kind of in-between place. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I was not doing life between life or pre-life planning sessions in my work. I did read all of Dr. Michael Newton's books. He's considered the expert in this field. And I read all of that, and it was intriguing. And I noticed a pattern among my clients that they were blaming everybody around them for what was going on in their lives. It's my mother's fault. It's my father's fault. It's my husband's fault. It's my children's fault. They never stopped to think that they had a hand in designing this life. And so that's why I called my book, I Did It to Myself again. And the other thing was I wanted to really kind of look at the concepts in the Newton material versus the Casey material. And then also the biggest thing was I wanted to talk about death. And so many people have a fear of death. And I was wondering if you get 25 strangers together and you lead them in a regression that takes them into the afterlife, from a past life into the afterlife where they're planning their current life, what is that like? What does it feel like when they died in that past life and their soul left the body and went into spirit? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Because I thought if they all say basically the same thing, 25 strangers describing the exact same experience, then shouldn't we then believe that that's going to happen with us as well? That is the way death occurs. That is the way death feels. That is the transition that we're going to make as well. If all these people are saying this and they don't know each other, that's why it was really important for me to identify in my statistical data where my volunteers were coming from when I did this project, because I wanted to show that they were really professional, well-educated people from all walks of life that you wouldn't think would be prone to fantasies. So I did this with 25 people, and the results were incredible, because when they talked about what it feels like to die, they all basically said the same thing. They said they had a sense of freedom, a sense of release. It was a gentle, painless process. And those that suffered a traumatic death, people that might have been tortured or something like that, they said their soul left their body well before the body actually died. And I thought that was also very comforting.
I believe that as well, actually. In fact, I actually think that it's probably more difficult to be born than it is to die.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. And I've got a new grandchild that's going to be born in about a week. So I'm like, I'm going to be there for that little soul to welcome her. I said, I know you had a hard time getting here, but here you are.
Brave soul, brave soul. It's been so much fun talking with you, Joanne. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners about past lives or that time in between?
I think that what I'd like to share is about our soul families, that the folks that are around you now have been with you since the beginning of time, since you first incarnated. We all were created at the same time, the time of creation, all of our souls. Some of us have decided to incarnate more often than others, which is why you get the impression that somebody's an old soul. They've just been here a lot longer. But these same souls, our soul family, a soul pod, they know you very intimately. They know exactly what issues you're working on. They love you very much and want to help you in any way possible. So they will agree to come in with you. They'll change gender and they'll change roles. So they won't necessarily look like they did in a previous life, but you'll get the essence of who they are. So your husband now could be your sister in a previous life and vice versa. So understand that these people are here because they really love you, even though they may challenge you. Some of them are going to support you, but some of them are going to get in your face because they know what you're dealing with. Out of love for your soul, to help your soul grow, they may be in that role of challenging you. So just keep that in mind and look at them from that perspective, and then that'll enable you to forgive much easier than if you don't know their purpose in your life.
And you could be playing that role for someone else too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're all doing that.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's so important not to judge, because we really don't have the big picture.
Right.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Joanne, for being my guest. How can people find out more about your work?
I'd love for them to visit my website, which is joannedimaggio.com. So it's JoanneDimaggio.com. And all of my services are on there, my books, my blogs. I think that they'd enjoy just surfing around in there for a bit, and feel free to get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Come visit me at thoughtchange.com. Pick up your copy of Learning to Listen. Discover what energy medicine can do for you. We will see you again next time. Bye for now.